Good morning, by the way.
Good morning.
How are you
Miss,
today,
I don't know what
honey?
you call it, Miss Croswell,
You can
Miss
just
Gray.
call me
Miss-
Catherine the Great.
Sure.
Oh, great.
Catherine
I
Great
will
for
sec-
short.
I will second that.
No,
I'm
mwah.
pulling myself away from Cat because I happen to like that, but I
I
understand
like Cat or Catherine. I
wanna
really
go
don't
with
like
Catherine.
either.
you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's really funny when I'm driving and drinking my water.
You didn't spit it or anything.
I don't spit.
You don't spit?
I just have backwash. That's all.
I love a liar.
Just a little liar.
Just a little.
Little little.
Okay. Click.
Click.
Uh-oh.
Oh, we're
Have
on.
to edit that out, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. We're talking about the brain network reinforcements. And so far we went through, I'll probably want to change my idea as I learn more, but what I call the big three: default mode network, cognitive control network, and limbic network. I think if you're going to study more, which I really hope you do, study about those. And there's a tremendous amount of information on the internet that yet hasn't been twisted into, randomized pseudo interpretations. The best of the best of the best are just learning about it. So if somebody claims an absolute knowledge, be suspicious of that. People that usually know the most are pretty humble about what they know. And there's some very, very, very bright people working this because it's so promising. Anyway, so the big three: cognitive control, default mode network, and limbic. The tango dancing pair: dorsal control, which is focus; ventral control, which is field. Those are my terms: focus, field. Then we have two others in the big seven that are there. One is the visual network, which is pretty much what it sounds like, except that you can extend it also into visualization, imaginative thinking, where you can actually see in your mind's eye. And of course, the neurolight is quite provocative because you see in your mind's eye all of these colors and patterns and so on that are a result of frequency stimulations that are not coming from the outside through your eyes. The signals are there, but there's no color in the signals. There's no geometry in the signals per se. So, visualization. Some people say, I can't visualize. I say, well, can you imagine? They say, yeah. I said, just imagine, that you're wherever, in your apartment or your home. Can you imagine that? Yeah. And a lot of that imagination is visual, but if you say visualize, trying to see it somehow is obstructed. Can you imagine? Yes. Can you see? Can you visualize? A lot of the Vajrayana Buddhist techniques, there's a lot of visualization. And some people say, well, it's really, really, really hard. So, it's an interesting area because it's a field of maybe limitless. I'm trying to find a word, but it's just so extensive what you can imagine. Right? Yeah. So if there's difficulty in seeing, physically seeing, although it's not going to work with certain pathological eye conditions very well, but it's in the mechanism of seeing internally, and even imaginative seeing, creativity as an aspect. Typically, what you'll find if you want to work with the visual network is usually it'll be accompanied by one of the mood brain skill sessions, because there tend to be emotional dispositions stuck to the imagination visualization process. And the one I use most typically, which is also we'll be exploring in the neuroplastic reinforcements, is when a person says, I can't see that happening. They don't mean literally they can't see it, but it's linked with being able to see it. You're going to be well again. I just can't see that happening.
Heard that.
Well, I just can't believe, I just can't see. These things are so intrinsically, seeing is believing, You know, the Missouri state is the show me state, that seeing as proof and believing, it's so intrinsically linked. It's so intrinsically linked. So I think you could be quite creative with this area. You know, I'm only one person. I can only, and I live up in a village. You know, and I don't have an active practice. So many of you will be a lot more inventive and creative with the neurolite than I can be, based on your experience.
So Gibbons won't let you do it on them?
No,
Yeah, exactly.
The gibbon, no, I work with rescue gibbons. Generally speaking, wild animals really don't like flashing bright light. Yeah, yeah. They would like to play with it all. So if you've ever seen me, I'm trying to be conservative now, but no, it's a long story. We'll skip that. Why I would wear red and green and blue, bright yellow glasses, because the gibbons are... You know that a gibbon wants to touch you because they already did.
Yeah.
Right? They're that fast.
They're that fast.
And, you know, I would be certain, because I use like reading glasses if I was concentrating on something. And, you know, they'd just be sitting there. And the instant that I take my attention away from them to the task, poof, the glasses were gone.
Oh, how funny.
And they would typically, you know, go up and swing them like this, round and around and around, and then throw them. Or look at me and swing them and then take the two arms and go and watch my reaction when they snap. But why I got the bright colors is because they would take them and throw them, and I couldn't find the black ones in the plants, you know, on the ground. So that's why I bought bright yellow and red and, like, you know, blue, because at least I had a chance of finding
That
them
is so great.
after they throw them. So, okay. The last one is the somatomotor. Soma meaning the whole body, and motor. And quite obviously this is the network that helps to translate or connect brain determination with motor movements. There is a somatosensory, but I could not find the correlated brain frequency harmonics for it. They didn't publish it. They didn't, for some reason, they didn't go into that. So the way that I use it, the way I interpret it, is if you know, okay, if there's an issue about body self, body coordination, even self-identity, somatizing the me, especially with disassociation processes, limbic trauma loop, at a certain point, not too early, working with that seems to help them reintegrate their somatic experience with their cognitive conscious experience. So it's motor. Also, any of time that you're using movement-related neuroplastic reinforcements, it's really great to kind of tune or reinforce the network that'll be the integrator of the neuroplastic work. So if you're using kinesthetics, you know, whether it's traditional yogas or whatever, or any of the broad areas, I would say for anybody that you want to, quote-unquote, connect or ground into their body, that it's helpful, because, you know, it's good to sense your body, but the best way to sense your body is to move your body. And so that helps with that integration back into the somatic self, especially when expressed through movement and not, you know, passive, static, non-movement.
So is this helpful? It would be a process, but someone with chronic pain who is disassociated from that, you know, last step.
Yeah, but they don't see.
Get rid of the pain.
Yeah, you're exactly right that it's later on. We'll be talking more about, because we're sliding into the brain shaping long-term thing as we talk right now, right? Some of the practical considerations. Think in terms of principles, because I want you to. No, because I do, and maybe I think it works well. Bumper stickers. First things first, right? You've got to meet a person where they are and help them go to where they need to go. And if a person is disassociated from their body because of chronic pain, what the hell? They don't want to go into their body. All that's there waiting for them is pain. You know, so there has to be an accumulation and an evolution of experience techniques that work towards that kind of final goal usually fail. You'll see later on when I go into the neuroplastic reinforcements, and I'm going to present 3 or 4 ones that you can use almost anytime, anywhere, right? Which is really, really advantageous. One of the things is called good enough, where you don't aim for the ideal. You don't have the person in their neuroplastic adaptation idealize the end result. As long as it's good enough, it's going to work. And too many of us will consciously or even unconsciously idealize the result, not achieve it, and it serves as yet another proving of the fact that I can't be well. Right? See, I told you it wouldn't work. Didn't work. Well, what did you expect? No pain? Well, how about less pain? You know, I mean, would that be better? You know, is that acceptable? Well, no, I don't want any pain. Okay, but maybe we can have it decrease in steps and stages over time as you come back into function. You know, so I don't know how I got there exactly.
Good enough.
Good enough. All right, that's good enough for an explanation.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm sorry, 1866.
We're going to keep going until 1 or 12:30. 12:30. The lunch break is going to be a half an hour, not an hour today. We don't have enough time, so we'll deal with it. I've got some food here. We can share it if you want it. So okay, half an hour. We have basically 2 subjects to deal with in terms of this, and then we have some 1 or 2 or 3 kind of demonstration sessions. That's the concept for today. Right now, what I want to do, because we've already begun, is to move into the brain shaping approach, the long-term approach, which is related to the short-term approach. Brain shaping. Shaping is a term that's used quite a lot outside of neuroplasticity. It's used in behavioristic conditioning and so on. So it's not a new term, but it's a very apt term, because when you're shaping, notice that it's not brain shape or shaped. Shaping implies an ongoing process. You know, I am running. It's ongoing. I have a degree in English literature. I should know what that's called, but I don't remember. That kind of verb, right? It's a continuing action. And brain shaping really characterizes the nature of this area in neuroplasticity. And it is... It's kind of dumb to call it the serious work because, you know, it's all important. But it has a higher demand on the practitioner. It has a higher demand on the person, the experiencer, whatever you want to call it, client, patient. So, again, it goes right back to the very fundamentals of what I talked about at the beginning of our first day, capacity and demand. This places more demand on everybody. So you have to be careful that you have the capacity to match the demand, even as a practitioner, as a user. If you're using the Neurolight for yourself or for your friends and family, let alone in a professional model, this is important. You have to appreciate that there's a certain demand involved in terms of understanding. It's not magical. There's a certain amount of unpredictableness in it because variables come and go. And also, there's an element of commitment here on anybody's part, the giver and the receiver. You know, so I wish that the processes, beyond the Neurolight, I wish they could be so potent and simple that complicated things could be solved simply. But usually that's not the way it is. I mean, once in a while you get lucky. You know, it's like something happens, like, wow. But, you know, so I guess I'm advising kind of a mature set of expectations and realizations when you want to work with brain shaping. It is the promise, you know, in massage therapy I used to call it the big promise. It's when a person would start to do work, say on me, and I could feel that they're approaching my need, and they just kind of tease up to it. And you say, oh yeah, they're there, I've been waiting, and then they kind of go away, and you think, well, but they'll be coming back.
Yeah.
And the massage is going on and going on. I'm thinking,
Waiting.
I'm waiting for them to come back, because I told them this. I really want you to focus on X, Y, Z, and they were there, and I'm thinking, okay, they'll be coming back soon. And I'm waiting, and I start to feel anxious. I'm thinking, uh-oh, they're not coming back. I told them, they agreed, they came right up there, you know, they gave me a tickle or a tease or a kiss on the cheek or whatever it was, you know, and then, so I call that the big promise. Like, oh great, another one. It's like big promise. Because neuroplasticity for most of us is a new domain, we have to be students. And of course, you have to exude some amount of authority, or else you won't be trusted. Nobody wants to be a guinea pig. Try to work in steps and stages. You will probably, unless you have no choice, you know, you will probably find yourself feeling more able in certain areas, certain domains, as opposed to being, you know, confident expert in all. You know, it may be that you find yourself working and inclined more towards, say, dependency and addiction, or towards aging, right? Or towards creativity, or more towards memory, you know? And these things overlap, but I certainly am not able to work with all domains equally with the Neurolite, and I'm a seasoned holistic healthcare practitioner in my own right. And I know that I have strengths and weaknesses. So, you know, if possible, notice what you're good at, notice what comes easily, because, you know, in the brain skills, because there's a lot of brain skills involved with the brain shaping. And there's a lot of work that can be done. But if you've never even experienced the session yourself, the composition, and you just read a little blurb that I wrote, sounds like me, like a wine critic or something, you know, talking about this thing, then you're going to be at a disadvantage. However, it's not unlikely that out of the 80 brain skill sessions that you're going to be using 30 of the 80 in your repertoire, and that there are 50 that are there, and, you know, a year down the road you end up using one, you think, oh God, why didn't I use that before? It's so great. You know, have that expectation of good enough. Right, that you've explored to a good enough level that you have a facility now. And, you know, you're given an advantage because they're in 5 zones, right? Peace, cognition, mood, dependency, exploration. It's unlikely in what I'll call conventional wellness, where people are pursuing less of something bad, that you're going to be using the exploration sessions. Because they are for that. They are to push the limits. These are people that are pursuing creativity or consciousness exploration, that they want to explore uncommon states. And they have the capacity to match that demand. There are people that will specialize in the Neurolite for people that want to do that. And that's an interesting area, because it's not leaning so much more towards complaint or pathology, it's more towards human potential.
And ayahuasca.
And. Well, but, you know, for artists, musicians, writers, you know, if they have the physical, energetic capacity to go into that realm of brain signaling, you got the stuff.
Even CEOs, leadership, all that.
Well, this is the whole issue of performance.
Yeah.
You know, these are the people that are interested in extending and expanding their consciousness and their creativity and their productivity, and so that's a really nice area to work in because people aren't coming in and complaining all the time. And there's some practitioners or people that have never been practitioners that want to work as a light coach to work towards optimizing creativity and performance is not a bad
I
niche.
like that.
That's not a bad niche to be in.
Yeah.
And if you happen to be in a social environment where that's an issue,
Oh, yeah.
right now, you know, I've not been back to the U.S. much, and you know, I spent 30 years living in Southern California, Malibu, Santa Monica, and it's changed. You know, it's called Silicon Beach. There's Silicon Valley up in mid-state California, but so many of the Googles and all these companies have moved down now to Santa Monica and Venice. So you've got all of these people there.
Wow.
I mean, you know, Jesus, you know, the parking attendants are driving Mercedes. You know, now you've got to have Maseratis and
Where are all the hippies?
Rolls. Well,
They're stuck into
one's
Canada.
here. But anyway, the point is that I'm talking right now about long-term brain shaping, and it requires a maturity in the practitioner. And you know, Kaya had mentioned the other day, which I already posted in the Neurolite Facebook group, reading from authority much beyond mine in neuroplasticity is highly recommended. Norman Deutsch, Dispenza, all these people. So what it does is it gives you a sense of faith, right? And if you have faith in the field, faith in the process, faith in the instrument, you start to have faith in yourself, right? Because you feel capable, you've got the right tools,
Informed.
right? You're informed, you have a sense of expectation, you're able to communicate the ideas, you know, you can dance the dance of process. It's like, okay, I'm getting ready to bite off brain shaping. Now, how can I do that? What can I do? I'm able to give you certain pointers or directions. This is also true of even the help right now. If you look in the materials that I've generated, a good number of them on the website, online, free, and I collected the Facebook posts that I've done up until April 13.
The monster.
The monster doc, and I even pull things out of the monster doc now. You'll see in there some kind of prescriptive methodologies. I have, like, you know, help right now for anxiety, help right now for sleeplessness, help right now for this, help right. There are a whole bunch of them, and you can see examples of help right now. And I've also begun to develop descriptions of general methodologies and considerations for the brain shaping. It's very difficult to be prescriptive with brain shaping because it's an evolving, I mean, what are you biting off? Are you working to help a person that is aging without pathology, aging with pathology? Are you working with a person that's been highly traumatized, even victimized? You know, like, be careful where you want to go with brain shaping. An example of a nice brain shaping thing is helping a person develop a real meditation practice and experience. That's a nice one, because it's not a pathology, right? And by chance, you'll find it in the learning section on the neurolite.com website. If you go into learning, there's level 1, level 2, level 3. It's in one of the levels, not the first level. But I have an entire protocoled methodology for developing a meditation practice. It's all done in a PowerPoint format, and it was so big I had to make 2 separate PowerPoint files. And it's all there. I mean, obviously there are variables on it, but if you want to see a description, a reasoned definition of why you're doing what you're doing, how to talk about it, and the progression through to the point where a person could have a real structured neuroplastic-based meditation practice, that's there. And I have a few other things in there. One called crystal concentration, another one called sweet surrender. So, I've begun to promote materials there. One of the tasks I have now is that the materials that are existent are more advanced. I have to work backwards, and I'm creating Neurolight for Beginners trainings. Don't expect Neurolight for Beginners to take a person fluidly into brain shaping. That's not where Neurolight coaches begin. You don't begin there. Unless you're the unusual, seasoned and trained neuroplastic practitioner. You're already using movements. You're already using mentals. And now you want to incorporate sensory. Okay, that's great. You will remember that I had shown you this thing on Monday, which is in the website, which is in the Monster Docs, which is pulled out from the Monster Docs. And to quick reference, I mean, the last thing I can do is come over and give you a foot massage while you read it. This gives you not only a real quick reference, this is the theme index, and we had talked about that. Abandon, ability, abuse, addiction. There are these categories that quickly give you probable sessions that relate to this issue. Okay. Also,
Is that on the website here?
yeah, that's the one, the neurolight.com. And if you want this other document stuff, then Kaya will help you make a request to me and I'll send it to you. The other is here, this is all of the 80 brain skill sessions that I printed out. So it's nice to not have to go online to read it. You can read it as a document. In the Monster Doc that I sent out, you would note on this, because it's color-coded, I did this physically, but on the document it's already highlighted, the 20 core sessions. So out of the 80, not only have I shown them according to the degree of demand, foundation, intermediate, advanced, not only are they categorized by peace, cognition, mood, dependency, exploration, but out of those, regardless of all of that, I've pulled out 20 that are considered core sessions. And why are they core sessions? Because even though they're brain skills, by definition, function-specific compositions, there are some of the sessions that are more broad or more general. They're not the tip of the pyramid. They're just below the tip. And they tend to be, like basic balance is in the peace thing, calm and clear, general wellness, whole brain synchronization, hypothalamus, pineal, thalamus, cortex, day cycle synchronization, brain harmony. These are, and there are more of them, open receptivity. These are sessions that are highly useful. You can use them almost any time if you go into the brain skills. You can see where they're going, but they're really not defined yet. So I like, in a 1-2 punch, in the brain skills, I like using one of those followed by one that's more specific. Once you start to move it, once you're working through the mood, emotion stuff, and you're working now more into actual learned targets, by going from core to specific within the brain skills is helpful. It's not a rule. I'm speaking in terms of guidelines, but in the practical sense, if you're not really yet refined in your experience using the more targeted brain skill compositions, then using the core in relation to more specific, you're kind of covering your bases. It's very hard, like for brain harmony or whole brain synchronization. These are good. It's like very general exercise before you get into something really specific.
Do the 20 course sessions still have the criteria that the person has to be at a certain aptitude to accept?
A certain capacity. You'll notice that some of the core are foundation, some of them are intermediate. I don't know if any of them are advanced. I can see at least one here. So they tend to be on the low demand side.
Okay.
because they're general. I think most of them are foundation. I can see a couple. Here's like confused mind is an intermediate. It's in mood. So if the person's like, like that, if it's confused, it helps to bring them in a little bit. I have a side note here. People that say things, sometimes I write them down. Deeply calming. All right, so I'll read the description as an example. Mood, intermediate, confused mind. That's one of the core sessions. It's also one of the ones I call a wow session because it's impressive. If you want to just impress somebody. This session helps untangle the mind when things just don't add up the way we think they should. Getting to the root of the problem is often necessary to help clear a confused mind. So that's, you see, it's not the root, but it's in this general state. This session goes deep and then lifts up. If the confusion is possibly involved with a lack of efficiency in the functions of the brain, using the brain gym and brain food in combination with brain skills can be wonderful, just as long as you don't rush it. At times, patient assistance over the course of weeks is required.
So this still wouldn't necessarily be appropriate, like that one wouldn't necessarily be appropriate for someone that doesn't have
The capacity.
capacity.
Yeah, that's why it's at an intermediate level.
Okay.
So you can see, it's like hedging your bets. I can't say exactly. And you had said wisely on Monday, one of the ways of decreasing demand in a brain skills session is to use a lower level of general light intensity. So, you can soften it, you can round the edges a bit of higher demand by bringing the light intensity down generally. So if you want to use it and you want to play it safe, which is what I would advise, if you're going to err on the conservative, then just take the light intensity down a little lower than their appetite may be desiring, but because it's a more complex demand, that was nice, thank you. So, also in the Monster Doc, and I've also isolated it, you have this thing called clustering. Clustering is really fascinating. As you work along in brain shaping, and you find that certain sessions are really appropriate, they fit that person, and they've been working, and you want to advance the process, but you don't want to be too linear, too strict. You can look at the clustering document and find within the cluster one or two of the sessions that have been working. And by their design, other sessions will cluster or associate with it, but in a way that may not be evident just by the description. So they'll cluster. It's like, people that get together after work, they work in different places. You wouldn't think that they would associate with each other. They're from totally different companies, different fields and professions, but they all get together over there to...
They love football.
They all love football. They all get together at a sports bar and they watch football together. You wouldn't think by